take my time. It's a brand new day. Gotta take it on my way. Gotta take it on my way. It's a brand new day. Gotta take it on my way.
Welcome to Own It, Your Business and Your Life, with Nicola Cairncross and Judith Morgan. In this podcast, we're going to cover everything you need to embrace to become a successful entrepreneur, marketing, money, and much, much more. How to create a business doing just what you love. How to own it, your business and your life. This one will be fast, funny, feisty, and very lively. So sit back and enjoy the show.
Gotta take it on my way. Gotta take it on my way.
Hello, Nicola. Tell me about your week.
Well, Judith, I've got a public service announcement for our listeners.
Oh.
Anyone in America at the moment can simply text Own It Podcast to 33444 and they will end up with both of our fabulous free gifts that we give away to subscribers to our mailing list. They'll end up getting notified about future episodes and they will get to go onto both of our own mailing lists so they can see how we do our marketing. We do it very differently, don't we? But I think, you know, if you see how each person does it, then you can choose the way that suits you. So,
And what is this texting service called?
it's called Lead Pages, Lead Edits. Lead Digits.
Okay.
And I've just upgraded my Lead Pages account because I've been waiting for this for several months now because I know what a massive impact it's going to have for podcasters. Because a lot of people listen to a podcast out and about. They're not near their computer. They can't go to ownitthepodcast.com and subscribe to our mailing list, but they could just text 33444. They text Own It Podcast to 33444 and find out all about us and get some lovely free gifts.
Okay, so let me ask another question. You said only in America. Is it coming to the UK and Europe?
I would imagine so very quickly, yes. They're probably rolling it out in the States first, but it's, you know, we have a very high proportion of our listeners are in America, so do you lovely Americans text Own It Podcast to 33444 forthwith.
Okay, let us know how it goes. I'd love to hear what happens when you're on the receiving end of that.
Well, yes, I know exactly what will happen. They'll get a little thing back asking them to confirm their email, and then they'll end up in our Own It the Podcast mailing list, getting our lovely gifts by email.
Okay.
Here ends this public service announcement, Judith.
Anything else about your week you want to share, Nicola?
No, it's mainly going to be covered by you know, the other topics. But just to say, I know you've been revelling in it. Shore and by sea, glorious this morning.
Well, it's going to be 74 degrees today.
No, I'll have to go out in the garden for a bit.
I know. I mean, you know, Outlook will tell you, well, you don't use Outlook anymore, do you?
No.
Outlook tells you what the temperature is, and it tells you in old money. It tells you 74, whereas actually that's sort of 21, 22, I think, in new money, which I'm more accustomed to now. But there we go. That's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, so let me tell you about my week then, shall I? Can you hear my birds in the garden? Can you hear them? They're loving the sun as well. Can you hear that?
No, I can't hear them. Your microphone must be
stopped. They've stopped. You'll hear them in a minute.
Okay.
So I've carried on with my spring cleaning that I told you about last week that I'd started. I'm not doing any cleaning. I don't want to mislead anybody, but I'm doing all of these sort of tidying up type jobs. And I realised when I was talking to some clients earlier this morning that I'm on fire, and I think it's because it's partly to do with spring. But I had this, you know, I had those awful headaches in December and the norovirus in January and the court case in February. It's just coming out of winter, and it's made me realise how I haven't been. The old Judith's back. The old Judith hasn't been around for some time, but she's back. And this led me, and I knew it would because it was in my diary, eventually to spend the entire weekend, I'm not exaggerating there, to bringing my accounts up to date, my own accounts. And it was so exciting, and I realised you've got to be an accountant to feel like this, that I was up until 1:30 doing it on Saturday night. I broke into it to watch Britain's Got Talent with you, well, not with you, but you know what I mean. But I absolutely loved doing it. I loved doing my accounts, and I finished it on Sunday, and I did a little bit more on Monday, and I'm bang up to date, and I feel like a saint, quite frankly. But it's just there's some special energy. I mean, I know the sun always cheers me up, but suddenly I just felt the urge. I said it last week, and it's still going on. I felt the urge to do all these things that have been hanging around. The filing's done. Everything's done. I'm up to date with everything, and the old Judith's back, so I'm quite excited about that.
That's marvellous. We're going to talk more about accounts later on, aren't we? So I'll bring
We are.
my little thought to that. But yeah, no,
Marvellous.
I was inspired by you. I have a little pile of papers. I'm very paper free generally, but I have a little pile of papers which sort of include things to do, but also include things that I have, want to hand rather than filed away. And they sit on top of my printer right next to me. But I was inspired by you over the weekend to take them all into the kitchen, throw all the rubbish away, put them in neat little order, and just whittle it down so it wasn't in the corner of my eye looking messy.
Well, I have a sort of a 2-level intro, which I never really use anymore. The bottom level has got my expenses. So I've done expenses for months, which is brilliant. And I've got nothing in my top thing, which is the intro, except the crib sheet we use for next week's podcast and 2 unpaid bills. That's it. I mean, literally, I'm so squeaky clean. It's not true. I'm feeling kind of marvellous about it.
Task free.
Yeah, task free. So chore free it is, really. You know how you go, well, 1 month's accounts is not really worth doing, I'll do it next month. And then suddenly you've got 6 or 7, all gone, all done. Anyway, enough of that. Let's talk about what's fueled your fire.
Well, it's something quite similar, actually. I've had, after the flurry of activity from when I came back from Malta, suddenly, and the fact that I had a week with hardly any appointments in my diary, I've actually managed to, get a lot of things done that I wanted to get done. And I've felt that the empty space in my diary has created creative space in my head. And I've been blogging and, thinking about content creation because Dan Norris, one of my heroes who wrote 7-Day Startup, he's got a new book coming called Content Machine. And James Schramko has been talking about it as well. And they're both very inspirational in the content they create for their business. And in Dan's case, that's all he does. He doesn't do any sort of paid advertising or anything. So I'm really feeling now that I want to get back to content creation. I've had a little bit of a dilemma in the fact that my main blog is at the Business Success Factory nowadays. There is some blog posts on nicola.cairncross.com, but they're duplicated over at Business Success Factory. My main business is clicksandleads.com. Do I blog there? So the location of the blogging has been a confusing issue for me, but I've decided to persevere on with the Business Success Factory blog and then feed it all out from there onto the various Facebook pages and Twitter accounts and things. So,
Jess, tell me about Dan Norris and content creation. When you're saying that's all he does, he doesn't pay for anything. When you're saying that's all he does, creating content, what do you mean? Blog posts or something over and above that?
Well, he had a business before. I can't remember what it was called now, but he because he didn't have any cash at all. He churned out content that was of interest to his target market, and now he's got WP Curve, which recently, by the way, topped $100,000 a month in revenue. Not bad for 2 years. And so when he went over to starting WP Curve, he had about 4,000 people on his mailing list, which he'd gathered from content creation in his previous business. And he was talking. I was listening to a really nice podcast with him the other day with a chap called Ash. I think it's called Productivity something or other, and the chap is Ash something. And he was interviewing Dan about content creation, and Dan was saying, obviously, he can't just churn out stuff about WordPress, even though his business is all about WordPress. He needs to think what else would be of interest to his target market. And that's something I've always said, Do you remember the discussions we used to have about whether you should blog about your line dancing?
Yes.
I said it would attract the right kind of client if you did. But, people feel that they can only blog on topic. But actually you need to, if you've got a very clear picture of your ideal customer avatar, it's very easy to blog things of interest to them, or even share things of interest to them on your blog that haven't necessarily been written by you.
So my question is he only blogging with this content creation, or is it stuff he's putting in a membership site beyond a payment gateway?
James puts everything in his membership site as well, but he content creates for marketing. Dan Norris's book's going to be called The Content Machine, and he does everything on his blog. He occasionally does guest blogs on other people's blogs, but it's mainly on his own blog. And he's even got to the point now where he's not doing it himself, but he's created a system and various specialist outsourcers to do it for him in the way that he would have done it. So, I think the book's going to be well worth investing in if you want to get really into content creation in a systematic way.
Yeah, well, I think I'm quite interested in this for myself and behalf of clients as well, because sometimes, as you know, our clients struggle to blog. And sometimes gets to that point where they say to me on a weekly check-in, all I'm going to do this week is blog. And I sometimes think when I'm in the shower, is blogging the most powerful thing you could be doing for your business this week? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. What you're saying is we've got to find a way, or what Dan is saying is we've got to find a way to fit it. Well, I think it depends on the business, but we've got to find a way to fit that in. Is that right?
It's really simple, Judith. If you've got a new business and you've got a bit of cash, then advertising it online is the most effective way to get traffic, leads, and test your assumptions. If you haven't got a budget for advertising, blogging's the most efficient way to do it.
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
simple. And if you have got both money to do both, then I think the idea is to create get a system going for content creation and advertise. But the thing is, it's about creating an authority blog. We didn't know what it was called back in the day when we were both doing it early doors. But it's, if you go to a website and in fact, I experienced this the other day. I went to someone's website and their about page was minimal. There was no blog. There was no social media icons. It just had what they did. I wasn't very impressed. Whereas if you go to a website and they're offering a service that you're interested in, and then you go to their blog and they've got fantastic articles which really demonstrate they know what they're talking about. The articles are geared to you, and their about page is very open and honest and gives you a sense of who the person is. Who are you most likely to do business with?
Mm-hmm.
It's sort of obvious common sense, really, but so many people don't do it.
Yes. Yeah. I don't think it is obvious common sense. It's obvious common sense to us now. I don't think people are born knowing that. So, as with so much common sense, a bit like back to my Bear Grylls point a few weeks ago, which is, it's so obvious that when he shows you should have stunned the fish with a knife instead of you stalking it with a blanket. But it's only obvious once you know.
Just on that point, did you notice the women only took 5 hours to get a fire going, whereas the guys took 8 or 9 hours the first time?
Well, I was so pleased that the woman who won, because she, in the end, there were 3 people.
What do you mean?
2 of them were.
Don't spoil it for me. Spoiler?
No. This is not the one you're watching. This is the one that's finished.
All right.
Yeah, you're watching The Island, aren't you? I can't bear to watch that again. But on the one I was watching, which was called Mission Survive, there were 3 people in the final, and one of them, I so desperately wanted her to win, and the other 2 were professional athletes, and he picked the right one, so I was chuffed with that.
Oh, okay. I didn't watch that one. But no, I'm thoroughly enjoying The Island. The women and the men are very different, but they did get the fire going quicker. So.
Well, interesting. What's fueled your fire? The women on the island is what you're saying.
No, my empty diary is what fueled my fire this week. What about you then?
Well, I've done something a bit radical. I don't think you're going to approve of it, but it certainly fueled my fire. I'm sick to death with the freebies that we're all encouraged to believe that we should give away on our website. And I did away with mine about 3 or 4 weeks ago, and it hasn't stopped sign-ups at all. I have a theory that nobody reads the free downloads. But what's fueled my fire is that I've replaced it with a prize draw. So once a month, I'm going to pick out a lucky winner from my mailing list, and whether they like it or not, I'm going to give them a prize, which they can use themselves or they can pay it forward. And I'm going to use something. I'm going all geeky today. I'm going to use something called a random number generator, that helps you pick the lucky winner. I love the whole thing of lucky winners. I've always loved lucky winners, and my word of the week is luck. So we'll talk about that when we get there. And so I've used that as an incentive to grow the list as well, which is, you'll get the newsletter and you'll get lovely tips and great writing and inspiration, but you'll also get a chance to win.
I'll be really interested to see how this goes. Have you got an idea of what your opt-ins are doing at the moment so that you can compare?
Yes, I don't think it's going to be any better. I don't have massive amounts of opt-ins, but when I took the freebie away, it encouraged people to sign up, not the opposite.
Really?
Nobody wants those freebies. It's tired advice. Nobody wants more digital information. They want something else instead. They want something that's fun or easy. And I saw somebody saying this on Facebook this week, do you want all of the bonuses that come with the book that you want? No, you should want the bloody book you want to buy. We don't want more free digital information, I don't think. And I've known this for some time, and now I'm just having the courage of my convictions, which is one of my colleagues, Marion, pointed out this, that one of our mutual colleagues has been giving away a prize draw for some time. We laughed because we said, you get the prize whether you want it or not. And that's the same in my case. They might not want a free session, in which case they can pay it forward to a family member or a colleague or something like that. And the prize might be come to a cash flow game, or it might be a book that I've got that I want to give them, or it just might be whatever I feel like that. It might be a month in one or other of my coaching clubs. It'll just be you'll be a lucky winner. It's a bit like when you go to, I don't know, you don't do it anymore. You go to school fetes and you buy a strip of raffle tickets and you win a hamper. I think winning things is quite good fun.
I think you're right about reading, freebies where you have to read. People definitely prefer video nowadays, but
I don't. I wouldn't touch a video. You see, that's the point. I don't want anything on video ever under any description, and I don't want more free digital information. I want something which is fast and fun.
Well, I don't know how I feel about all of that.
Well, because it's received wisdom, you see, but I think we're innovators. It's time for us to invent something new and sexy and exciting to give away.
I think you can do what you like for a start, and I will be very interested to hear the outcomes. I really will.
Well, I mean, lots of my I give clients when they opt in. I've been giving people for ages lots of fantastic free stuff, and they say to me in the group weeks and months after the event, I wish I knew how to do X, Y, and Z. And I go, did you read the freebie that you got when you opted into my list? No.
Yes, it's true. I mean, I do download freebies religiously and then very rarely get round to them.
I don't even download them, you see, because I know I'm in overwhelm when it comes to more digital information. And also, I want what I choose, not... That's the point that it was Barbara Winter was making. Do you want these freebies? No, you want the thing you want. And
I bought something because of, and I very rarely do this because I get into overwhelm very easily, but I've just recently bought Webinar Jam Studio because I wanted the webinar training that goes with it, because I was so impressed with the traffic genesis training that it was a complete no-brainer for me to sign up to it. I knew I'm not ready to use it yet, but I just wanted to get it so that I got the training. So that bonus worked for them. I think
it's very individual, because I know, when I send out my newsletter, I get lots of people that write in and say, thank you so much for sending your newsletter. So what I decided to do was to make the newsletter as good as it could be, so that the thing that they're signing up for is the best thing I can give them, the weekly written inspiration.
Yeah, I think you're really good about that, because the thought of putting it in a newsletter where it's not going to be used or leveraged publicly hurts me a lot. Every time I read it, I think this is great.
It's leveraged. It's leveraged because it goes to the people who are going to buy from me. It's warming them up to become purchasers, and it works.
Yeah.
And it sometimes takes a long time. I remember 2 clients that we had in the Money Gym. One that took, I think, 7 years of reading your newsletter and was paying off her credit cards before she felt she wanted to make an investment. And somebody else who was on it for a long time. And I get these emails that say, I've been reading your newsletter for 3 years and now I'm ready to make a purchase, Yeah. So it's also because I'm a writer, so what I want to do is write to them once a week in the best way I possibly can, in a way that they find helpful and inspirational. And I market in them, and when the day is right, they'll buy. And sometimes, if it's a good one, I will put it on the front end as well. But I want the distinction of, you get something special that's written specially for you once you've opted in, and there's a chance of a prize draw as well.
So do you make any of this? I haven't really been to, I read your blog all the time, but I don't really notice the sidebar, to be honest, because I've been going there for so long. So
yeah,
have you just got a sign-up box that says newsletter now?
Yes. But actually it says, and I borrowed it from that client of mine that I've told you about before, where she put these words that said, you just want to receive a non-spammy newsletter that talks about X, Y, and Z. And I put on my own, I've added in the prize draw this week, but I took off the freebie. Nobody was reading it anyway. What's the point? It says news, tips, and inspiration created especially for you, plus free prize draw. And even before I put the prize draw in there, the number of opter-inners was noticeably increased, because I think what Marion and I did was we put it higher up, so it was the most visible thing. It was a little bit low down before, and I think that's all that counts.
Yeah, putting it above the fold possibly helped as well. But
yeah, it was above the It was already above the fold, but it wasn't high enough above the fold, if you know what I mean.
Well,
But I also, this is about me being WYSIWYG. What you see is what you get. And what I want you to get is a lovely newsletter that I spend a lot of time over so that it will be really useful for you. And if you want that, opt in. If you want freebies, bugger off and opt into somebody else's list that gives you something free.
Well, it's all very interesting. Well, I'll
It's a bit me. Yeah. Anyway, so my fueling my fire is the excitement of a prize draw, which I love.
I've got to say, now I'm looking at the website, that free prize draw would definitely entice me.
Well, I know I can make more of those words, but I haven't had a chance to do that.
Yeah. No, I think it would definitely, news, tips and inspiration created especially for you wouldn't necessarily do it, but free prize draw would tip me over.
Well, actually, you see, the first bit is the important bit for me. That's exactly what I'm creating. News, tips and inspiration.
Oh, very good. I heard an interesting thing this morning. I was listening to some podcast earlier. I have a morning ritual now, and one of them I was listening to, in the podcasts that inspire me, and it was James Schramko said something along the lines of, the people who read emails always make less money than the people who send emails. And I thought that was very interesting because I've been a bit slack about sending my weekly roundups and things recently, and I've been reading more emails than I've been sending, and I thought, that's a really interesting little phrase to remember.
Well, that's something you could definitely measure over, say, 3 months, isn't it? So if you decided today to start sending a weekly bulletin, you could measure what impact that had. Actually, you don't really want any more business at the moment, do you? Aren't you a bit swamped?
No, I've got all my new clients' Facebook ads under control. They're all rolling along nicely. Everyone's getting leads and sales. I'm ready for more.
And when you were talking about blogging on Business Success Factory, does that do you good for new business on clicks and leads? If not, I think it does.
Yeah, I've got a clicks and leads link on my main navigation. Fine. I get a lot of traffic from there, so that's fine.
Okay.
I mean, theoretically, I should blog on clicks and leads, but I don't feel so. That'll be business owners. I don't feel so drawn to blog about practical marketing tips as I do about the psychology of success.
Well, you see, that's what your man was saying, that he couldn't blog endlessly about WordPress, and I couldn't blog endlessly about cleaning. There are topics that one can't blog about.
Yeah, so theoretically I should blog on clicks and leads, but
I think so, yes. But actually, is there any reason why you shouldn't have that blog or whatever you like on clicks and leads?
Say again?
Is there any reason why you shouldn't blog on whatever topic you like? If I can blog about line dancing, why can't you blog on whatever you like as long as it's on clicks and leads?
God, I feel so reluctant to stop blogging on the Business Success Factory. It's got over.
Well, I'm not suggesting you stop, but if you want traffic on a website, you've got to blog on it, haven't you?
Not necessarily, because I'm paying for traffic.
Okay.
I could just blog on Business Success Factory, which actually is the home of my mentoring program. So it sort of makes more sense to blog on business success psychology and marketing on the home of my mentoring program and just pay to send traffic to my...
Well, I tell you what you could do is every now and again you could think to yourself, would this work on clicks and leads? Or I'll stick it on there instead, on a week maybe. Because actually you just said a very good point, didn't you? Which is if you come to a site and there's no blog on it and whatever, maybe
there is a blog on it. I do put the best stuff on there, so it's sort of doing the job.
Do you feel isolated and alone in running your own home-based business? Do you have worries, doubts, fears and resistance which sometimes make you feel like giving up? Don't worry, you're not alone. In fact, you're perfectly normal. It can be scary all by yourself. But what if you could learn how to become a confident business owner, how to trust yourself more and grow your income, relax and be more creative and productive? Small Business Big Magic is a unique business mentoring group providing grounded practical support and advice, fast responses to your questions, inspiration and solutions to boost your clarity and help you find direction, focus and success in your life and business. Join Small Business Big Magic today for the friendship and encouragement of others just like you and the enthusiasm of a coach who gets you and your business. There's big magic for your small business at judithmorgan.com.
Anyway, we're straying into my challenge of the week territory. Thank you for your coaching. It was most helpful. But I think we do have another client challenge of the week, don't we?
We do. It's all about accounting this week. I noticed at the end of, where are we? We're in April, the end of March. One of my clients said, "Oh, I've got to spend the day invoicing. I dread it." And so this week's challenge of the week is, how can I learn to love invoicing? How can I learn to love doing my books? How can I learn to love the numbers? And obviously, it's my favourite bit because it's sort of the whole point. I've always been one of those, Winston Churchill called the Brits a nation of shopkeepers.
Yes.
I've always felt that sort of ka-ching of the tills ringing, the Del Boy boot fair thing, the taking of the money is part of the thrill for me. And that's why I had a shop once, where people could actually open the door and come in. I love that element of it. And I'm I'm very creative, so I don't love it as much as I used to, but I do quite like that efficient feeling that comes of having done all your admin. I certainly never hated invoicing, and there's so many easy ways of doing that. So I think today what we should look at is, what's the point of learning to love the numbers? And given that the majority of our listeners might regard it as a chore, what are the most efficient and modern ways of getting it done? I know you're straying into Xero, and I'm thinking about fresh books. You can even invoice very easily via PayPal, for instance. How can we learn to love the numbers, Nicola? What thoughts?
Well, I think the first thought is, the whole law of attraction thing, which, love it or loathe it. There's definitely something about what you focus on increases. And I'm always astonished when I start to work with clients, even my VIP clients, that they don't track their key performance indicators, also known as KPIs. They don't know how much traffic they're getting. They don't know how much of that traffic's opting in as a percentage. They don't know how many people visit their sales page. I mean, trying to get my mentoring clients to look at how many people visit their sales page each week is like pulling teeth. But if you don't know how many people are visiting your sales page and you don't know how many people are converting into sales, you haven't got a finger on the pulse of your business. And I've always found that focusing on my KPIs every Monday really focused my attention on what I needed to do that week. It was a real motivator, because if you can see that your traffic's down, you need to focus on traffic. You can see that not enough people are visiting your sales page, you can focus on getting more links to your sales page around your site. If you can see that people are visiting your sales page but not buying, you can focus on your copy. It's like a barometer of what needs fixing or what needs improving in your site. The other thing is, whenever people say I'm doing my accounts, and that's what I want to ask you particularly, and Heather, my sister, the singing sister, spends at least 2 or 3 days a year doing hers, whereas I used to just keep my cash flows forecast and reconcile it to my bank account once a week and then bung all my invoices in one pile, knowing that they were there if I needed them. What do people do when they're doing their accounts for 3 days?
I think it depends what they're doing. I think a lot of self-employed people do it once a year for the tax man. And so because they haven't done it all year long, they are going through all their chits for a year and probably putting them into a spreadsheet or adding them up down and across, as I call it, in a way that you can either give it to your accountant or you can put it on your tax form. So I think the people that do it for several days are the people who only do it once a year.
Oh, well, because I'm doing it weekly. It doesn't take, well, I don't, doesn't, you know, and my cash flow forecast feeds into a management accounts thing. So I've got my profit and loss for the tax man, and it's all categorized, and I just give my accountant the link to it and he asks me any questions. Now I've got VAT registered. Obviously it's a little bit more complicated, but that's why I've gone to Xero with receipt-bank.co.com, which I'm loving a lot.
And are you a limited company or a sole trader?
Limited company now.
Okay, so it's important point to put across here for people who run their businesses through limited companies, certainly in the UK, that you sign once a year as a director, that you do your accounts often enough to be regarded as responsible as a director. So if you don't do it for months on end, you don't know where you are, you're acting in a fiscally unresponsible way, which can ultimately get you barred from being a director, because if you don't know what you're doing and your business is going down the tubes and you don't know it, you start to trade insolvently and so forth, and that's a risk. So there's a requirement as a director of a limited company to do your bookkeeping and accounting at intervals which are often enough to be regarded as responsible, and I would think that would be as a minimum monthly.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I would always encourage people to do it weekly, or twice every fortnight minimum. The thing, let's come back to this trading insolvency thing, because if you're a limited company and you're trading insolvently, then and you don't know that, then it's illegal, isn't it? I mean,
It strays into the realm of crime. It does, yes. Mainly because people might place a big order with you and pay you a payment on account, which you then were unable to deliver for whatever reason, and their money would disappear. So the whole point of being a limited company is that there's some protection for the public who do business with limited company, because they can search you if they want to at a company's house. But if your record keeping is not up to date enough, you don't know whether your business is doing well or badly. And I think, going back to your key performance indicators, there are lots of different things that people can choose to measure which might be more friendly or more useful for them. So you, for instance, if you're doing your invoicing once a month, you've got a monthly turnover figure. That might be a useful thing to measure. You might choose, if you were doing your VAT on a cash accounting basis, which is not an invoicing basis, it's a cash receipts basis, you might measure how much money goes into the bank. You might measure, I think opt-ins to a newsletter is a nice thing to measure. I quite like to keep an eye on, website rankings and things like that. You don't have to, you can choose what goes into your KPIs. What thing would you choose to measure, which is very useful and fast and makes you feel good about yourself, I think.
Yeah, and if you're a business owner, surely you want to know what's going on with your business, don't you?
You ought. I think that's the point. I think you ought. There's many reasons why. I mean, you've told us over the last few weeks, that you're excited and that you've always been on this planet to build a business. I don't think everybody listening feels like that. I think that they feel, we had this debate, 6 weeks ago about, I just want to make a living doing something that I love. The figures are a bit irrelevant if it's all about doing something that you love. They're irrelevant only up to the point where you achieve whatever the financial goals are with a small g that you set for your business, i.e. if you can pay your bills, you might not worry very much about everything else.
Yeah, it's a conversation I like to have very early with mentoring students, particularly, not so much the VIP people, because they tend to have businesses already, established businesses. But the mentoring students, I mean, I always take them to my profit calculator, which anyone listening can find at clicksleadsandsales.com. There's a profit calculator over there, and it basically tells you if you get 10,000 visitors to your website a month as a hypothetical traffic number, how many of those are likely to buy, what are they likely to buy, what's the profit on that first product, how much are you spending to get them there, in terms of your time or whatever, and is there any profit in it? Because I'm always astonished at the number of people who come to me wanting internet marketing mentoring for a business that actually is never going to make them any money. And they haven't done the sums to work out what their profit margin might be, and they just
I don't think people are born knowing that.
No, not. And I didn't know it for years and years and years.
And I always say to people on the very first call I do with them, what's your financial target that you want to make every month that means you can pay your bills and be in financial integrity? And they often say something like £6,000. I went, no, not a life of luxury. What do you need to pay your bills every month? We usually start at like 1,000, 2,000, whatever, 1,500, whatever it is. And I go, right, well, we'll call that base camp, okay? We'll get to base camp first. Then you're in financial integrity. You can stop worrying about money. And then the next thing I say is, okay, so what are you selling? What do they cost? How many of those do we have to sell every month to make that 1,500 quid? And that's my simple back of a fag packet, measurement is, what are you selling and how many of them do you need to sell every month without fail to pay your bills so you can stop worrying about money? And that's quite an easy sum that everybody can do, I think.
Yeah, I had this conversation with, do you know Mark Donnan?
I know that you've been on the cruise with him, haven't you?
Very down-to-earth Irishman who comes from corporate life, but is still very down-to-earth, running a very successful digital marketing agency, and good luck to him because I don't want to do that anymore. But we had this conversation last night because I was helping with his Facebook ads, and he was working out on average, what's a click cost, what's an opt-in, and he was basically working out what he needed to, because he wanted to refer me to his clients for Facebook ads, and he was working out what kind of price point they needed to have in order to make a profit from using Facebook ads. And it was a really interesting thing because he had the old calculator out and he was doing it at lightning speed, and it's something I'm very, very familiar with myself. But he was doing it really fast. I was quite impressed. And it turns out that generally speaking, worst case scenario on conversions, you need to have a profit on your first product of around 350 quid. So, if you're going to go for it big time and get your data in very quickly within a month, obviously you can do it longer and get the data in slower and have a lower price point. But I always do think to myself, the ideal client, it needs to know that they're going to make about £350 to £400 profit on the first product they sell, or have a very robust back end. That's the other thing is, it's not, if you're going to break even on your first sale, what can you put in place on the back end to make sure you go into profit very quickly?
All of which will be meaningless to my sort of client, you see, because they're not selling in that way.
Yeah.
They're selling services or themselves or something they've written or drawn or something like that. And there we're looking at, so I might have a conversation with somebody that says, I think I might sell it for a £5 or £7.50. And I go, right, we're going to need to sell 150 of those a month in order to, meet your base camp financial target. That's not going to work, is it?
No, that's great that you can see that so clearly.
I think that's the thing. And how can I learn to love invoicing? How can I learn to love doing my books? Don't overcomplicate it. It only needs to be as complicated as the sort of business that you are running. And if it's just you at home, make it very, very simple. But lots of my clients do fall in love with the numbers, funnily enough. There are some people whose brains just work like that. And I think if they do it, they find that it can be quite empowering, and the knowledge that it gives you is very, very useful. And again, it doesn't need to be complicated. It can be a very simple sum or a very simple spreadsheet or just a piece of paper. Donald Trump is famed for saying, it's just a way of keeping score. You've got to have something you measure. It doesn't really matter to me what it is, frankly. It might not even be money. It might be numbers of people you've served or units you've sold.
Yeah, that's a lot of really, really, really big successful entrepreneurs who run like multi-billion corporates. They give each person in their business a number, and that number has to be reported every day. So, for example, the receptionist, it might be 3 because they've got to answer the phone under 3 rings. So he gets that. I can't remember who it was now. Yeah. I've heard a lot of people do this. They really simplify things down to a number that each person knows they're responsible for. Yes. Just like to say at this point, I am a grade 3 CSE maths girl here. Absolutely rubbish at maths. Hated it. Mr. LeCount, with half a beard and no moustache, I'll never forget him, made maths an absolute painful experience for me. But I swiftly came up to speed when we started doing, the wealth creation and I started learning about the power of compounding and sexy concepts like that. So if I, with my limited mathematical ability and inability to do anything unless I've got a calculator in my hand and often have to go 3 times at it before I get anything that looks like it might be a right answer, if I can learn how to do this stuff and learn to love my numbers, then anyone can, surely.
Well, actually, one thing I've learned from the cash flow game is that almost everybody sits down, and they used to do this when I was an accountant as well. When I was an accountant, they'd say, I hate maths, me. And people sit down at my cash flow table and they go, I'm useless at it. Then they go on to demonstrate everything else, everything but that they've either got mental arithmetic skills, which I haven't got. I've always used a calculator for everything, or they've got fantastic calculator skills and they know perfectly well how to calculate all sorts of things, or they've got great instincts. Actually, maths is badly taught. I don't know whether it is anymore, but it was in your day and in mine. And so it's a bit like going to the dentist. We've got an aversion to it, but we've picked up in our adult lives skills and abilities that we underestimate. So usually we're quite good at some element, but because of our awful memories from our childhood maths lessons, we don't somehow either recognise that or pat ourselves on the back for it. But usually people have got, when people see, when I'm in a restaurant, we're divvying up the bill, people give it to me because I'm an accountant. If I haven't got a calculator, I can't do it. But lots of other people around the table can just do it because they've not been an accountant all their lives and relied on a calculator. So, I think that almost anybody is probably better at this than they think, actually.
So in summary, I mean, what you focus on increases. If you focus on your KPIs once a week, it'll give you a roadmap for the rest of the week. Doing a simple cash flow forecast and reconciling it to your bank account has given me peace of mind. Even when times were difficult and I wasn't actually earning hardly anything, I still kept it up because I prefer to know and to be able to see, because I'm such a visual person. I like to see my money on a spreadsheet. What you're saying is that if you learn to love your numbers, it can really help you to work out how many of things you need to sell to achieve your income goals.
Yeah.
And if the keeping,
and you're probably better than you think. You're probably better than you think at this.
Yeah, keeping it simple.
And also, you can pick anything you like to measure. So it doesn't have to be money. It can be units. It can be, how many inquiries you get or how many you convert. Back to the Jim Rohn story. I've got to ask 10 people in order to get 3 yeses. It can be anything.
And I think the thing that's coming out so importantly here is that if you want to run a business and you want your business to thrive, you've really got to get your head around this. It's a non-negotiable, isn't it?
Yeah, and I don't think it needs to. People don't need to feel it's a straitjacket. I bet I can find a way that almost every business owner would enjoy this.
Yeah, and you're obviously a good teacher, because if a lot of your clients end up loving it, then you're obviously teaching it in the right way.
I think it's that thing. It's not like a maths lesson. It's kind of oh, I get this, and I'm better at this than I thought.
It's like taking the pulse of your business, isn't it?
Yeah, and I love it. I mean, I used to love the invoicing because it was the same as being, a shopkeeper. And I think if you don't love doing the invoicing, you've got to create a system where maybe somebody else does it under your direction, or you only check them, or whatever it is. But there is, you know what you told us last week or the week before about Sarah finding you that app that you just mentioned.
Fabulous,
something. Shit, whatever it's called. There are apps and applications and things, online invoicing systems and all sorts of things that make it much easier for us. And the other thing to remember, I think the word spreadsheet can be a bit scary for people, but actually a spreadsheet only does 4 things. It adds up, subtracts, multiplies and divides. You don't need to understand the myriad formula that you can do with it. You can just do 4 very simple things. You can just use it for adding up. And I'm very good on a calculator, but I sometimes do it on a spreadsheet as well, because the spreadsheet, as long as I've typed in the data correctly, will add it up and prove that my sum was right. I often do it both ways. Accountants do. We like a double check.
Yeah. Final word on this. I'm going through a business transformation program by the same person who ran Rich's Weekend that I went to, that changed my life dramatically.
Yes.
And only this morning I was doing my exercises from module 4, and it said something along the lines of that if you place yourself in a context of having to, or feeling that you've got to do something and you don't want to, you're setting yourself up for feelings of resentment, for feelings of feeling trapped, feelings of feeling out of control. But if you could turn it around by saying, I choose to, I want to, I'm looking forward to, then your attitude towards the tasks that you feel you have to do will change completely, and you'll enjoy it much more. So, for example, if you turn it around from I've got to do my invoicing and I'm dreading it, to I choose to do my invoicing, I do it gladly and joyfully because it's going to bring more lovely money to me, which tells me how much I'm appreciated for what I'm doing in the world and how many people I'm helping. Something along that line.
Marvellous.
Change the context.
That's what the NLPers will call a reframe, Nicola.
Yeah, I suppose so. I don't get involved in NLP, but I'm sure there's some of that woven in somewhere.
Well, it's about the only thing I know. It's a reframe. You just reframe the task.
And going back even further to some other stuff that I really rate is the thing of, is this thought helping me or hurting me? I've got to do my invoicing, I don't want to. Is that thought helping you or hurting you? It's hurting you, obviously.
Or is there somebody on my team who could do it better than me?
Oh, yeah, no, I'm definitely think that. Who could do this for me? Brilliant. Marvelous. But again, another thought, you've always got to delegate, don't abdicate responsibility.
Absolutely. I was thinking exactly the same thought at exactly the same moment. Delegate, not abdicate, yes, which means you've got to manage it if it's done by somebody else, and I don't really like managing. I'd rather do it myself, quite frankly.
Right, so what's your word of the week then?
It's luck, in keeping with my prize draw. Yeah. And when I looked at my crib sheet this morning, it said word of the week, luck. And I thought, what on earth was I thinking when I wrote that down? And so I've had to do a bit of thinking around it this morning. I can remember times in my life where I've not been lucky. I've been unlucky. My first flat that I bought was in a flood zone, flooded three times before I couldn't get insurance anymore. We had to sell it and move on. And various things like that. The brand new car I bought broke down the first night I bought it. So there was a phase of my life where I wasn't a lucky person, and I think it's very important to notice and acknowledge when lucky things do happen to you. Like, another way of looking at luck is good fortune. Am I a person that fortune smiles upon? And to cultivate it, really, there's a book by Richard Wiseman about, it's called The Luck something. People who, and Paul McKenna's book says this, people who are lucky, think of themselves as lucky, know they're lucky, attract more luck. It's kind of in your DNA, your operating system. And I occasionally come across clients who are jammy. And I say, oh, you're quite jammy, aren't you? Which just means good things turn up. And it's just a thing they know about themselves, that they've been very fortunate, they're lucky, they're jammy, and things show up in their lives. So I think it's something that's worth examining. If you catch yourself noticing, oh, I never win, never win, it's never me, that's something that you could turn around as well. There's that great saying that's been attributed to about 4 different people about the harder I work, the luckier I get. That's one way of becoming lucky, but it's not the only way of becoming lucky. And so I try to notice whenever wonderful things happen and say, aren't I lucky?
I think it's a very dangerous word, because I think that it is giving a bit of, I love all the things you've said about it, by the way. The whole thing about, I'm lucky and you attract more luck and all that stuff. That's, I'm sure that's true on a very physical, quantum physics kind of level. And the other thing is, there's a great book called Learned Optimism, which is one of my favourite books of all time, by Martin Seligman.
Yes, I've read that. Yeah,
really awesome, and how important it is, especially if you've got children, because children tend to inherit their optimism, pessimism from their main carer and their attitude. So how important it is if you've got kids to really work on your own attitude. But I feel somehow that by even using the word, you're giving up an element of control about your reactions to things and outcomes to things, because it's sort of putting it out there beyond you somehow.
I hear what you say. I don't agree, but I hear what you say.
Well, we'll agree to disagree on this one.
I acknowledge your worldview. I acknowledge your worldview, Nicola.
Yes, but that's not the truth for you.
No. What I'm saying is, I think you can cultivate it.
Oh, well,
and that's what learned optimism is about, isn't it? About cultivating good outcomes.
An attitude of expecting good outcomes, which definitely we know on a quantum physics level definitely makes that happen. So. Yes. But I don't see. When talking about your flat and talking about your car breaking down particularly, that there's nothing to do with luck there. It was just a mechanical failure. We're going into being a human.
The luck element is that when I went to buy a new car, let's say they sold 12 that day, I got the Duff one. There was a definite phase in my life where everything turned to SH1T most of the time, and I would look back and say that was a place where, if it could go wrong, it did. And in other stages of my life, the opposite. If it could go right, it did. And what I'm interested in exploring is to the extent that I created that reality or not, or was part of it.
Yes. I think we do, because I definitely had a period when everything went wrong as well, and that period continued for quite a while after I changed my attitude.
Yes.
But then, as a friend of mine always says, SHIT travels at the speed of SHIT, and that's pretty slow. So there's always a bit of a lag between when you change your attitude and start giving off good vibes. And
that's right.
Things start
and I tend to think of it as a sort of spiral. There's a downward spiral and then there's an upward spiral, and sometimes you have to deliberately notice you're on the downward spiral and change the energy. And you're right, there is a lag. There's a lag.
Yeah, absolutely. Interesting words, Judith. And
yours? What's yours, darling?
Tolerations. We're back to Thomas Leonard's tolerations, because I've had a week of tolerations. I was actually quite last night, because I thought everything, I'm not joking, everything techie was not working. From little things like my Camtasia stopped screen recording because there was an audio glitch with my microphone versus the internal microphone versus Skype using the microphone. And I had to really take myself in hand yesterday and say, for God's sake, stop tolerating these things and just fix them. And I had to get on the phone to America with Camtasia. It turned out to be a bug in the system that was causing that. I'm signing up with Stripe right now because the payment gateway Stripe, because I want to use Nanocast with my membership site. PayPal is notoriously unreliable, apparently, about ongoing memberships in terms of they do their cron jobs or whatever it is they do, and sometimes they don't work, and then your membership site locks someone out when it shouldn't, etc., etc. So Stripe's much more efficient, apparently, but it's very techie to use. But I've got a techie doing my membership site, so he said use Stripe. So I'm trying to sign up for Stripe. It's really effortlessly easy, apart from the fact where they send confirm your account, and you hit the button to send a confirmation email to you. It simply never arrives at my inbox. I've been wrangling with this for 3 days now, and I've spoken to their support, and they haven't replied. And I'm just getting more and more exasperated with it. And that's the kind of thing I've been tolerating this week. Apart from
I would take
other
that.
things.
And I know you're not going to agree with me again because it's the same thing. It's woo-woo. I would take that as a sign not to use Stripe.
Well, that just knocks out one of the best payment gateways on the market, so I'm not about to do that.
Well, we've already had this discussion about Stripe, haven't we? And funnily enough, somebody mentioned it to me earlier this morning as well, and she said, well, I'm not going to use Stripe because everybody knows and recognises PayPal. But I think, there are lots of things in my life where I've had signals like that, and I've ignored them, and I've pushed through, and it's always turned out to be an error.
Well, we'll see, won't we?
Just saying.
Just little thing. Yeah, okay. I'll take that. Well, I will honestly report back on my.
Okay.
And just little things like I'm running out of toiletries but can't be bothered to go around the shop, so I should order it all online. And it would have come 2 days ago, and I wouldn't be still thinking about it. It's so important to zap tolerations when you notice them, because they just take up your mental energy, don't they? And when they pile up like mine have this week, it really is quite exasperating.
Interesting. I was going to write a blog post about some quite dull domestic systems that I have. I do all my shopping online.
Oh, please do.
I do things like my parents taught me this. I do things like, as you take the tube of toothpaste out of the drawer and put it into use, I order another one from Ocado this week. So I've always got one in reserve of everything that I rely on.
That's so good. And I keep thinking about just setting up a Tesco order for every week, but I'm worried that 1 week I won't be there to let it in.
I don't automate the order of anything, but I have a system. I have a system for everything, and I thought, well, I could write a blog post about that, but it's actually quite dull.
No, for me it wouldn't be. I'd read every word with absolute gripping attention. Please tell me.
Well, last week you gave me a blogging challenge, and I did it the same day, so I might do that one today as well.
Well, that would be awesome. Because Sarah's gone off to a house sit in Pagham today, and I'm very aware that when Sarah's around, she does make my life run a bit smoother in the household. So, just lots of little things, and I need to get a grip quick.
Yeah, there was a girl that worked for me forever in my accounting business called Penny. She was my right-hand person. Good name for an accountant. We always used to joke, Penny.
Yeah.
But she knew how my household ran, and she could run my household for me. And she's the only person I've ever met who was sensitive enough to, order and have in stock everything that I would have chosen myself, even to put it in the same place where she knew I kept it.
Oh, I dream of a housekeeper.
I was having a garden party one year, and I sent my niece indoors. She said, have you got a headache tablet? It was a Sunday. She was hungover from the night before. Yes, go into the bedroom, top drawer on the right. And she came back and she went, oh, God, I wish I knew how to put my fingers on everything like that. She says, you've even got a thing where you put your cotton buds. This morning, my feet were a bit cold, even though it's a lovely hot day. So I got my one pair of cashmere socks out of the place where I keep my cashmere socks. And as I did it, I thought, oh, God, I can think of so many people who wouldn't know where to put their hand on their only pair of socks. And I'm a little bit smug about it, but it is just having a supportive system. And I read Wayne Dyer saying yesterday, he never used to be able to find his keys until he decided just to make it a mindful practice to always put them in the same place.
Yeah. I'm pretty good about a lot of things, but this stuff is the whole housework stuff and house ordering stuff, and it just
I agree with you very much about tolerations. It's just deeply draining to step over things that don't work very well for ages, keep meaning to get around to it. I think that's why, going back to my week, while I'm feeling so good, is because things like the filing piling up and the accounts not being done make you feel bad.
Their tolerations, definitely. Yeah. Yeah, and you've got to keep your mind for the big stuff, you know. You've got to keep your mind free of the little niggly things, ready for the big stuff.
Yes, I think you could create a system around. I'll put my mind to it, Nicola, to create a domestic management system for you. Okay.
That'd be awesome, and I'm sure a lot of entrepreneurs would absolutely love that.
Okay.
Cool. So who or what's impressed you then this week?
Well, I think you're going to be surprised with what I'm going to tell you, actually. It's a two-part television programme that I've been watching on ITV called Code of a Killer.
Ah, I have downloaded it but not watched it yet.
Yeah, it's the true story of the brilliant scientist who was involved in DNA and the pioneering detective who first partnered up with him to use DNA for the first time ever to solve and prevent more crimes that were going on in the Midlands. And what I really liked about it, well, somebody else said to me on Facebook this morning, it's amazing, it only happened 30 years ago. Yes, it is. But
wow.
What I liked about it was the thinking. Both of the men, you know, they really, let's go back to luck again, they really persevered. So the man that made the breakthrough, you know, there was years before they actually found that each of us has a unique code when it comes to DNA. And then the policeman's thinking, where, I tell you what, we'll test every man between the ages of X and Y living within a 5-mile radius. And they did, I don't know, nearly 30,000 tests before they found this person. But they found the person.
Wow.
And I think it was the thinking. No, you know, the man that had the DNA breakthrough, he didn't think of using it in crime. It was the policeman that did. It was the coming together of the two minds that I found absolutely fascinating. You know, the thinking, the perseverance, the exhausting pushing through and the long hours and the testing. It was something new that nobody else trusted, so they had to go against resistance from their bosses. Nobody believed in it except the two of them. Imagine working on something where nobody believes in you. And, you know, now, 30 years later, it's just taken for granted. A couple of decades later, it's mad. Pioneers, really, I suppose. People who do pioneering stuff. It was a bit slow telly, to be honest. It was an hour and a half each time. It could have been an hour each time. But I just was impressed. I'm always impressed by, you know, what that teaches us about human beings behind the story.
You just give me an idea for a client challenge of the week. So we must discuss that afterwards before
Cool.
Yeah. So this week, you'll be surprised by mine, I think. Steve alerted me to the fact that Sam Smith, one of my favourite singers who sang with Discover, has lost a lot of weight. As has
I saw it. Yes,
Gordon and Boy George. And it's an author called Amelia Freer, and she's written a book called Eat, Nourish, Glow. You may not know this, but she was Prince Charles's former assistant, and she started with us a bunch of 4 seasonal recipe books, and it's all about what you eat, when you eat it, and you know whether it's good, you know whether it suits you personally or not. The thing that's impressed me about it, not only the fact that I've ordered it because it sounds quite, you know, if it was made Sam Smith. I mean, talk about celebrity social proof. You know, Boy George, James Corden, and Sam Smith. I like all of them, so you know, it's sort of got my attention that way. It's a great concept she's got there. She's doing really awesome marketing, and as I say, the celebrity social proof thing made it a no-brainer to order the book. So
what is her name? Amanda something, isn't it?
No, Amelia Freer, Freer.
Yeah. I've read about it online, actually. And Sam Smith reported losing quite a lot of weight in a very short period of time, like 2 or 3 weeks, didn't he?
It was a stone in 2 weeks.
There you go.
A stone in 2 weeks. But he looks amazing. He looks really, you know, astonishingly good on it. So I thought I'd order it, and I'll let you know how I go.
Okay, so and what you're liking about it as well is, again, the same thing is the crossover into our business interests.
Yes, the fact that, you know, I'm very impressed with how she's done things. But the other thing is, once I know what I need to order, because she teaches you how to throw out the toxic stuff in your cupboards and replace it with good stuff, I could then weave it into my weekly order that I'll be doing at Tesco's after I've read your blog.
You could, yes.
Excellent. Oh, well, that's another week flown by, Judith. So can I just recap? If you're in America and you're listening to us here, then you can text Own It Podcast to 33444. Get yourself on our mailing list, get some lovely free gifts from me and Judith, and get notified about future episodes. And then you can see how we do it, because you'll end up on both our mailing lists. Of course, you'll be able to unsubscribe at any time. Thank you very much. Any parting words for our listeners, Judith?
No, I'm just very excited about the texting thing and hope it comes to the UK and Europe very soon.
So do I. Thank you very much. Speak to you next week.
Okay.
Bye.
See you, babe.
Bye.
Bye.
It's a brand new day.
You've been listening to Nicola Cairncross and Judith Morgan. The podcast is called Own It, Your Business and Your Life. Do come and visit us at ownitthepodcast.com. We love to hear your feedback. You can find out more about Judith and visit her on her website at judithmorgan.com, and you can find Nicola at nicolacairncross.com.